I'm Lydia and welcome back to my channel. Like many diabetes diagnosis stories, mine is a bit of a wild one, so let's get into it. And just to add a bit of drama, this all happened during May 2020, which was the height of all the COVID lockdowns and restrictions, where travel and hospital visits were not allowed. And also every illness pointed to COVID, not diabetes. So let's just set the scene. I was living and working in Houston, Texas in a biology research lab. This was part of my placement year for my degree in biological sciences. I started this placement in August 2019 and for 7 months I was based in the lab. I was thriving, I was living my best life. We were going travelling every other weekend, exploring loads of different states in America, which was absolutely amazing. Once COVID hit, we moved to working from home, which I also really enjoyed. I loved just having time to write my little research reports. Also, we had a swimming pool, so go out for swims every day. But that's when things took a bit of a turn. Throughout the whole month of May, I just became really unwell. I was incredibly thirsty and I was drinking a lot of Gatorade. Absolutely nothing was quenching my thirst. It just felt like my mouth and my tongue were just incredibly dry. And I also became really tired. And if you know me, I love a good nap. I spent the first 2 years of university asleep pretty much. But this just felt different. It was like a full body fatigue, which is completely different to any of the just like tiredness I felt before. However, despite this exhaustion, I was waking up multiple times in the night, desperate for a wee. I was also losing a lot of weight, and I honestly just thought exercise was really effective for the first time in my life. And then I had two other kind of like minor-ish symptoms, which were leg cramps. I was using a foam roller for the first and only time in my life and it just wasn't helping. And I also had really blurry eyesight. Like, I've got bad eyesight anyway, I wear contacts. But this felt like I had pieces of hair in my eyes, like I just had like fluff in my eyes all the time and it just wouldn't go away. I've got pictures of my camera roll of me being like, trying to figure out what was in my eye. And to be honest, I chalked it all up to living in Texas. I thought I was just dehydrated, living in the heat, like it was just really hot there, obviously. Then the alarm bells started to ring. It wasn't until I was sleeping 16-hour nights, sleeping from 9 AM to 4 PM just throughout the day. I then started vomiting. It was just a really strange colour and really strange feeling. And then I was really struggling to breathe. I was Googling how to breathe in the middle of the night, genuinely sitting up in my bed, had like wet flannels on my face, like I was just so ill. It's obviously the illest I've ever been in my life. But also, every time you Google how to breathe, a big warning comes up like, seek medical attention now, like this is not normal. So instead I just messaged my housemates on Facebook like, hi, help me, I'm really unwell. And thankfully they woke up at like 7 AM the next day, read all my messages. I had not slept all night because I'd just been throwing up, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything. And my housemates Trina rang up the emergency room and they told her to bring me in immediately. Of course, when you say that you can't breathe and you've got like chest problems and all these other like weird symptoms, everyone was kind of assuming it was COVID because it was just the height of COVID. So they were like extremely concerned to be near me, even though we'd been in lockdown for months. However, whenever we got to the emergency room, staff actually just took one look at me and reassured my housemates that I did not have COVID. And then that's when I entered the emergency room. I was immediately surrounded by so many people in hazmat suits, which is so bizarre. I then had to undergo loads of tests, did loads of swabs like up my nose, down my throat, everything. They made me stand in front of this like wall x-ray thing. I was just so weak, I could barely stand. You need to go wee for a pregnancy test and I was like, I'm literally not pregnant. Until finally they tested my blood sugar and it was in the 500s. In UK terms, that's like high 20s, although I'm sure it was higher than that. I think that's just like the max range. And I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Bearing in mind, my housemate was also type 1 diabetic. As I'm lying in the emergency room, they allowed my housemate to come in and they told her that I was type 1 diabetic. However, my survival was being monitored on an hour-by-hour basis. I was in diabetic ketoacidosis, I think that's how you pronounce it, which is also known as DKA. This is an incredibly serious condition where my blood was acidic, and when your blood's acidic, your organs do not cope. DKA happens whenever the pancreas stops producing insulin. This also means that all of the glucose that was in my bloodstream was not being converted into energy by insulin because there was no insulin. So to compensate, my body converted the fats into ketones, which is another source of energy, and also the reason why I was losing so much weight. I wasn't able to breathe because my body was trying to expel the ketones via my lungs, which is pretty much impossible, but God loves a trier, right? So they gave me something that they called an anti-anxiety thing. Of course, I just latched on to this whole anti-anxiety thing, so all the messages to my family after this, while I'm on this anti-anxiety medication, were, oh, I'm on an anti-anxiety drip. Make that make sense? However, things got a lot less painful and a lot more fuzzy from this point onwards. I remember they were asking me questions like, what year is it? And I told them it was 2021 and I was laughing. And I honestly think that's because of a Vampire Weekend song, even though it was 2020. And I also managed to get this picture, me in the emergency room with my thumbs up. I have literally no idea how I convinced a member of the staff to take this for me, but they did, and I'm forever grateful for that. So afterwards, I was taken to the ICU via ambulance, where I was hooked up to multiple IVs all at the same time. I was hooked up to insulin, glucose, potassium. The potassium one hurt. Just to top it all off, randomly, a doctor came in. Bear in mind, loads of doctors were coming in and out, and education, nurses, everything, as I just lay there, like, out of it. I distinctly remember a doctor coming in wearing like a little fleece and she was like, oh, so you've got an underactive thyroid. I was like, oh, okay, didn't know that. She was like, yeah, you must have noticed, you know, like weight gain. And I was just lying there like, okay. I was literally like the thinnest I've ever been. So I've also got an underactive thyroid. What the hell? Just a piece of foil in my hair. Also, in hindsight, what a bizarre thing to say to someone lying in the ICU of a hospital. Oh, you must have noticed weight gain. No. So, as you can imagine, experiencing the reality of American healthcare was not on my bucket list of things to do in America, and having to deal with prescriptions, buying insulin for like hundreds of dollars for like one little vial, getting hospital bills. I actually got a big hospital bill right before I had to do a big presentation at work, and I spent that whole morning so stressed because I thought work insurance covered it all, and pretend like I didn't just receive the news that I owe $16,000. Thankfully, my work insurance did cover it all in the end, and after a lot of emails and proof, it's all sorted, I think. I am incredibly grateful for my housemates coming to my rescue. They literally saved my life, and I was especially lucky that Trina showed me all of the ropes. She done my first injections for me because I was terrified of needles, ironically. Once I got home, my blood sugar was in the 400s, which in like UK terms is like high 20s. If she hadn't been there and dealing with all of that for me, I would have literally had no clue what to do. But thankfully, my sister-in-law is also diabetic, and she was able to explain everything to my family, explain everything to me as well. Combined, the both of them helped me to figure out my insulin doses. I was on like 50 units of long-lasting insulin. Obviously, insulin amounts vary for different people, but 50 units of this like Humulin N, like cloudy white mixture I was injecting. I had the lowest low of my life on my first night home after being diagnosed. My blood sugars were 21 in American terms, which is 1.2 in the UK terms. I literally rang my housemate in the middle of the night and I was like, oh, my blood sugars are 20. And she was like, oh, it's fine, do some insulin. And she's like, oh no, that's really bad. And she legged it up to my room with a pint of orange juice, and again, saved my life. Obviously, having a support system while being diagnosed with diabetes is so important, and it's a huge part of dealing with it and coming to terms with it and learning how to manage yourself. Obviously, because of COVID restrictions, my family couldn't come out to visit me. I couldn't go home. I just had to stay put. And that was another thing I was very thankful for my housemate for, because she actually contacted my best friend whenever I was in the hospital and told her what was happening. And then she rang my sister, told her what was happening. My sister had to tell my mum. I would just lay there completely unaware of anything happening. I mean, of course, the whole thing was chaotic, but if you don't look back and laugh, you'll cry. So I continued to live and work in Houston, Texas for another 2 months before we left at the end of July and flew home on a completely empty airplane besides people wearing hazmat suits. So yes, it was an extremely concerning experience to look back on, but I don't recall ever feeling scared. If anything, all I felt was an extreme relief because I was just so unwell. This insulin and all these different drips that I was on were just making me feel better, and I was just so thankful that I felt better. I think having the ability to just breathe again is a huge benefit. It's underrated. So if you're watching this and you've got any diabetes symptoms like tiredness, thirstiness, losing weight and going to the toilets loads, to like extremes, go to the doctor and get a blood glucose test because it might save your life. Overall, I'm extremely thankful to be alive. I continue to live my best life and I intend on doing so for a long time, despite diabetes. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe.